Well, great for you to join me again for a few more minutes to kind of cap off some thoughts from Sunday. We're in the thick of these intense chapters, really coming to an end of Paul's addressing of what God's doing with Israel. And so, chapter 9, he's brokenhearted. Chapter 10 is this idea that they need to hear just like we needed to hear. Someone has to say, preach the gospel to them, just like someone preached the gospel to us. And they heard. That's what he says in 10. Did they heard and they rejected. So, but God's not done with them. So Sunday we talked about God's still doing his good work with Israel. Now you can think of any person, any believer, any unbeliever, any nation that really doesn't kind of pull in the direction of God or for sure of Jesus Christ and think that the stuff here is applicable. But with Israel in particular, Paul makes a case that God is going to follow through with them because he's loved their forefathers. And because he's loved Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and he's worked his way through, they have you can call it this, a spiritual heritage. That the first part was set aside, the first fruits, right, the root, and therefore he's going to finish what he's doing so that the whole part is whole. And that's next week. He's going to say, and all Israel is going to be saved. Now, what he means by that, we'll get into on Sunday. But one more thought, that it's got to be God doing his good work. That you carry this thought around, because if you're a believer in Christ, it's because God has allowed you to see him, right? You probably said no for a while, or you rejected him, or maybe when you were young, your parents introduced you to who Jesus was and you came to believe. But it's always God's thing, right? It's not man's thing. Like that he settled that in the beginning of the book, that no man chases after God, that none seek after him. So how will he do it with Israel? Well, it's going to have to be him who is removing the veil, right? He's going to allow them to be hard for a while, and then he's going to allow them to see. They're in their hardness, which we were in our hardness, and then he removes the veil. And I always think of this scene in John chapter 9. This is where I would have spent just a few more minutes. Here you have a man, he's born blind, right? So John chapter 9, here's a man born blind. He sits at the temple, he asks for offerings. He's been like this all his life. And Christ encounters him, and he heals him. It wasn't because of something that he did or something even that he asked for. Jesus heals him. And you have this incredible scene because now he can see, and now he's talking about this man who healed him, this man that no one's ever heard of this, that a man was blind and now he can see. Who's ever heard of that? He says, a man is born blind and now he can see. Well, the Pharisees get so mad at him because he even says, wow, you want to know him too? He says, don't try and school us. We know what we're doing. And so, but this beauty of a blind man having been given his sight by Jesus has such great spiritual overtones to it. It is God who does that to us. So they kick him out of the synagogue. They boot him out, right? Because they don't want to have anything to do with him because he presumes to somehow introduce them to Jesus. And then Jesus catches up with him. Now look at this scene here. When Jesus encounters him, they'd already cast him out. This is chapter 9 and verse 35. Jesus heard that they had cast him out. In other words, out of the synagogue. And having found him, he said to him, do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered, and who is he, sir, that I may believe in him? And Jesus said to him, you have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you. And then the man said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped Jesus. Now, listen, that is so cool. Listen to what he says here. This is a blind man who now has his sight. And Jesus says, you believe in the Son of Man. In other words, you believe in, he's going to introduce himself to himself, right? He's the guy that healed him. Do you believe him? Who is he? And then Jesus says, you have seen him. Now, that's an interesting thing to say to a man who was blind all his life. You've now seen him. And then he says, I believe. He is the God who gives sight to the blind. Now, more importantly than physical, spiritual. The miracles were simply a picture of what he would do in the hearts of mankind. And it's got to be him who does it. And he does it. Do you believe in him? Who is he that I might believe? The man says. You've now seen him. Now that's pretty profound for a man who hasn't seen a whole lot in his life. Now he saw Jesus. And that's a great thought. And Paul's trying to say in Romans, Israel's going to see him. God's going to see to it. Take that thought with you, with those that you encounter. It's God doing his good work. And he does his miraculous vision work with people.